Thank you so much for coming back, Richard, to discuss the patrons' dreams on this episode. I've had a lot of good feedback from the previous episodes that we've recorded, and seeing as it's Pisces season and there's an awful lot of planets in Pisces at the moment, I thought, what better time than to get together and talk about the wishy-washy, woolly, murky dream state and the messages sometimes that might appear, the symbolism, and how that can translate either through astrological symbolism in reality, if we can call it that, or just in daily life. So would you like to explain some of your initial thoughts on that for us?
I think it's a very good way of starting off with any dreams rather than complicated theories. Which is to see them as messages from an intelligence somewhere inside you, or which is all about you. Now, the famous Jungian Mary Louise von Franz, who I loved, really. I mean, I really do love what she did for Jungian analysis, and she made a specialism in dreams. And she was once asked where dreams come from. She didn't say the unconscious, she just said nature. They come from our inner nature. It's as if we're part of nature and they're a natural product of our psyche, which is part of nature. But nature also has our particular nature also has a soul or an animating spirit in it, often looking for a purpose or a way to get back to the source. So nature provides a vehicle through which dreams come, and often there are messages or statements or some kind of puzzle that we're there to work out. And sometimes, as a professional therapist, the dreams are not for the client, they're for me. They, we might have covered some specific topic. Because I use dreams within therapy, sometimes they're messages for me to reorient my style, or tell me I've been doing something wrong, or I got an interpretation wrong. So the client might not know I've done that, but the unconscious knows. So who's the message for? If it's a prophetic dream, then it's for the collective, and you're being used as a vehicle. Talking about Pisces, Pisces is very much a sign connected to the collective feeling of the world coming through the news, or the flights of birds, or just our own mood, or the weather. And sometimes, that Piscean energy doesn't know whose is whose. You talked about the murky world of dreams. It's a kind of fluidic substance. So in general, we can say that dreams are indicative of messages, and even just to note down those messages, draw some dream figures, is to bring them into the rational consciousness, to take them seriously, and then we may have other dreams from that, or sudden interpretations might jump out at us. So rather than starting from the base of Freudian dream theory, or Jungian, or Adlerian, or neuroscience, each have their take on why dreams happen and how to utilize them. It's best to have an open mind and see where our intuition leads. Although I think structure, method, interpretation within particular things is important. Jung led that way with symbols and mythic images coming up in dreams. Or I had a client the other day who, I hope she won't mind, but this figure was coming out from the sun, and it turned out to be someone on a winged horse. And she has, I'm sure she won't, I won't say, well, yes, she has Sun in Sagittarius in the 9th house. Now, as you may know, Sagittarius is the sign of horses. But it's and so I noticed this was a figure in mythology, of Pegasus, who is a representation of the spiritual aspects connected to the earth, which is a very Sagittarian thing, half horse, half man, you see. And so what was this doing in somebody's dream? Why is Pegasus, a mythic figure, suddenly appearing? So is it got anything to do with her personally? She's never met an actual horse that's flown. And what's it doing coming out from the sun? Do you see? And as we may know in astrology, the ninth house is higher communications, divination. The rulership of astrology is under the ninth because it's kind of a higher knowledge. So we think it's also interesting enough the house of science, because the basis of the ninth house is to explore dimensions beyond our individual neighborhood, which is the third house. Third house is personal knowledge, you know, writing, texting, street names, neighbors. It's our kind of knowledge that we know, basic education that we know to get around. It's the language. But the ninth house knowledge is higher education. What the heck does that mean? It means to think beyond in concepts, philosophies, spirituality, divinatory sources, gurus, philosophies, all of that ninth house kind of stuff. And in fact was called the House of Dreams, because dreams were conceived in the medieval period as messages by angels, and angels are messengers from higher order of existence. We won't go into the 9 realms of angels just yet, because they, you know, certain angels have certain things to say about certain parts of life, right? You know, and then you get the spiritual intelligences of the planets, which can sometimes poke up, and they're informational only, you know. But what's the information about? The spirit, the soul, or to guide you through life? So sorry, I'm mixing on a bit here, but it's just a way to move into dreams and see where you're taken. Although I think a good base in theory can help us put a bit of Virgo into that that Piscean nebulousness. Well, it could mean this, or it could mean that, or it could appear at any level. Is it relating to this? Because with that, we're just in the sea of the unconscious. So delving into dreams consciously is an attempt to fish. See, fish, you bring something up and you make a meal out of it, or convert it into some way into thought. That will never completely explain the dream's meanings, because dreams, you know, dreams are many different levels. But if we can convert some of it into useful conscious knowledge, then you know me by now, I'd like to then act on it. And this is very similar to astrology. When we're working in symbols, we can wax lyrical, Geminis or whatever. We can talk about this and that and that. But how are you going to use it practically? I've got a Virgo ascendant. So what is there anything this is saying that will make an immediate difference to the way you conduct yourself in life? So I have a bias. Yes, it's all very nice to talk about archetypal images and symbols and things, but they're messages to consciousness. And if we work at them, there may be something in that message which is profoundly useful, even if it's an attitudinal change rather than something dynamic to do in the world. So open our, let's say, minds and our imaginations to these different levels. But come back to your point, they're messages of some kind.
Yes, and often very cryptic messages. You know, I mean, sometimes dreams are quite obvious. Sometimes you can wake up and say, yes, I think that related to this, and that's quite clear to me. But sometimes they're extremely unusual, and you just come away thinking, what? Well, I know myself personally, I have very unusual dreams, and I'm waking up thinking, I literally have no idea. It doesn't relate to anything that's happened in my life recently that I can understand. Sometimes, you know, they're like miniature films. I had a dream the other night that honestly could have been like a Netflix thing, like a total Netflix story. And I just think, like, how does that come together in your mind, and what is the purpose that is serving me right now? You know, it hasn't left me, that dream. It's very, very clear in my head. And it's just, it's, you know, so I think sometimes if you're a deep thinking person, you're left with something to unpick in your own head. I mean, if you're somebody that wants to get involved and understand these things on a deeper level, just the mere process of dreaming and waking up from it is enough to create a deeper dialogue within yourself, to open up deeper searching or understanding, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does make sense. But I must say here that consciousness helps the dream become fitted into a mold, because there's an old connection between symbols of the unconscious being the sea or eternal space or a fluidic medium or the astral world, right? It's all kind of nebulous, as you say, very Piscean. But then out of that Piscean inner Netflix comes your particular story delivered to you.
Yeah.
Now, if you're in analysis of some kind, then those dreams, we touched upon this in our previous talk, that the dreams think, oh, well, okay, let's fit ourselves into this mold. There's an analytical experience. The woman is a dream interpreter, and so sometimes the dreams themselves decide to put on a Jungian flavor. You see, or if you're in a Freudian analysis, you'll get loads of sexual imagery come through. See what I mean? Or something like that. So consciousness itself has a say in how dreams are presented to consciousness. But if you're not doing dream work or journal work, then it's got no structure. So it'll just be an amorphous mass which may or may not mean anything to you. So sometimes the apprehension of consciousness, the receiving instrument, whether that's Jungian or theory, it will help you, because this is one of the basic things that Freud told us, that dreams are pre-conscious statements. And they're pre-conscious because you get them in rapid eye movement sleep, REM. So you're asleep when you have them, but you can remember them in the, you know. Now sometimes we go to sleep after that, so we might have 5 or 6 dreams a night and not remember any of them. They're doing something, by the way, and that's all to do with the neuroscience, which we may get onto. But those dreams that bring us out of sleep to remember them, it's like, it's not rational. It's in a dream imagery drama, right? But they're kind of wanting to become known. So, for example, the feeling that you have coming out of a dream is often the most important thing. What was that? What was the dramatization of the dream? Might have been about a feeling coming to consciousness, feeling of dread or a feeling of joy. What is it? And it wants us to know that something is going on underneath. So pre-conscious dreams are pre-knowledge, pre-known information, which is trying to make itself known to your rational understanding and your life in consciousness. So the receiver of the dream, your consciousness, your rational understanding, needs to take a particular attitude towards it in order for it to make any sense. Otherwise, it's just doing its business. You know, you might be sleeping on the wrong side, and a nerve end has become numbed or something, and the body is giving you an indication that you need to move off of that. Otherwise, it's going to get, going to get a problem. But there are many ways that the dream decides to use that particular sleep position in many different kinds of images. So it's not just about sleep positions or the body. It will use specific things and may even tie into events of the past, or it's seeing something that's coming up in the future and it wants you to know about it. Yeah. sorry, I rambled on a bit there. But
No, you got me thinking about how your dreams, the depths of your consciousness, are communicating in a way that makes you connect with how something feels to you.
Yeah.
Predominantly through the symbolism that arises, and you're more connected to that feeling than anything else initially when you wake up. The first thing you wake up to is, oh, I didn't like that, or I did like that, or that was, pleasant, or, that was disturbing. It's like that kind of thing. That's the first thing that you connect with. And then you can go on to analyze what the individual details actually meant.
yes.
But the initial thing that you connect with is how it feels to you. So that, I suppose, is one of the biggest indicators. It's almost like it's connecting you to your moon in a strange way.
Well, the moon is classically the work through the unconscious of the body, through the fluid of the body. It's instinctual reactions. The moon is very often unconscious in us. So is the primal symbol of the or the personal unconscious.
Yeah.
Because somebody has a criticism of you, let's say, and you think, oh, well, it's just them. And then, but it really hit you emotionally, but you didn't notice it. Or you did notice it, but you didn't give it a second thought, right? Something happens during the day, and then it turns up in a dream, in a disguised form, and it's saying, we're not done with this. Your reactions in this situation brought something up. It was your mother or your father or an incident. It can be anything. And so often dreams take on the role of helper in the realm of the unconscious feeling. And we might not register it because we're going to school, or we're going to, well, that didn't matter. But to the unconscious, that person with the red hat that dismissed you when you said hello in the morning, it could be a really big thing, because the unconscious memory, the unconscious works through memory. Yeah, so a symbol of something happening could trigger a whole memory right back to you where you've forgotten, maybe even right from the womb. That's 12th house stuff.
Yeah.
You see, so anything can trigger anything, but the unconscious will make a note, the moon, and in order to take care of you, the moon is the inner mother, right, and is the night side of the world. Yes, it's the light in the darkness. I mean, science tells us, how about this? Science tells us that we don't see anything unless light is upon it. Well, how do we see in dreams then?
Yeah.
How do we see?
And I know
It's
more recently they're finding a lot about it. They're definitely finding more. They're doing more research into that area in science as time goes on. More and more is coming out about it, but it's just such a difficult subject to quantify. It's not something that we can really lay down and study on a piece of paper with a textbook. It's very personal to each individual, isn't it?
Well, Freud's attempt, Jung's attempt to try and make it into an object of scientific study is possible. I mean, that was what Jung's and Freud's work were about. Everybody was saying, oh, well, you're just making it up. It's just fantasy. It's nothing. It's just, see. But then Jung was the first person, I think, in psychiatry to take schizophrenics seriously. When he was working as a psychiatrist in the Bergolzi asylum in Switzerland, I think it was in Zurich, he sat with his patients who were obviously mad, that they were having hallucinations and everything, but he took down these fantasic things that they were talking about, absorbed in fantasy, and he took them down and he tried to make sense of what you might call dream logic. You see, so it's not unintelligible, but to hear what a schizophrenic is saying, let's say, to really try to hear that is to think in a different kind of logic. Let me give an example.
Yes.
If this is a kind of classic example. Let's say somebody's comes out in the morning and said, last night I dreamt I was in a bottle but somebody hadn't put the cork in. Right? What the hell does that mean? I wish I was a letter being sent to sea or something. But but when you unpack that, a bottle is a container, right? So it's a category. This is what we do in astrology. There are categories. There are moon categories, sun categories. So, and what happened was that he was cold during the night, and so the bed was cold, and it had a gap where the wind came in. See. So what the schizophrenic logic is trying to say is, not through direct means, but by a kind of symbolic logic, is that I was cold when I was sleeping in bed.
Yeah.
And Jung was the first person to see that there was a logic in what it was saying. It's just all the categories and the usual language was not being used. It was a second category language, symbolic, affiliative. Yes, what you call symbolic logic, and this is the logic that is used in astrology. It's referential. It's sun-like, or it's. Do you see what I mean? So I wouldn't agree with you entirely that it can't be looked at. But if you want to get to the mystery of it, you'll never get to the bottom of these things.
No.
But you can examine them scientifically and try to make sense of that. Maybe even by imposing a theory, and a theory is a good place to start.
Yes. Because
it gives you an approach to a dream, and then the dream might go, okay, I'll use your approach, you Jungian, I'll use your approach. And it's a very strange business, because in the end, the unconscious is an intelligence beyond our rational comprehension.
Yes. And, the wealth of work that Freud and Jung have done is a really good basis for us to build on. And as you've said, with neuroscience and, more scientific modern takes on the dream state and research into it, I think what with Neptune in the final degrees of Pisces and with Pluto having gone through Capricorn, is now in Aquarius, we're definitely much more open-minded in reality, in the real world, to allowing spiritual ideas and the unseen to be part of our experience, which is why we've got so much more awareness around otherworldliness even in Western culture now. So I think it's interesting that in the mundane aspect, the mundane planets doing their things and waking us all up really to the, I say potentials, but the other realms that are kind of working at the same time as our real tangible existence. It's a good time to explore and understand ourselves on that level as well.
Yes, and as a tangent to that, two things occur to me. First of all, there's been a complete circle from the 1960s when Timothy Leary, who took out hallucinogenics and different kinds of things, Sandoz Blue was the name of the LSD that he actually, interestingly enough, had just clicked, that he sent away from a pharmaceutical company in Zurich, I think, in Switzerland. That's strange. Right. Anyway, so he sent away for it and he took it and went through these things. And he believed that it was possible to use LSD for cure of difficult or even depression. And they've come round full circle to that now. It's starting to be used, but now it's acceptable, you see. Now neuroscience has said, yes, it can change these things. And some people have had single session success. They come out and they realize they've put their own psychological problems in a deeper perspective.
Yes, and I, being a fan of Timothy Leary, I have to say he didn't conduct the most structured research initially, I think, and I think that might be what got him in a bit of trouble. No,
that was the point that he did. He started off as a Harvard University professor, but he started to take it too much, and as a result, I think he he got hooked on the adventure.
Yes.
Ram Dass, who was his friend, said about him that Tim Leary was an adventurer, and if he wasn't being an adventurer, the interest faded out.
Yes.
But there were some marvelous experiments. You know, he did a controlled experiment with people, and they had mass in a church on LSD to see if the sacraments and if the divinity of these things could be seen in a different light, could be really experienced, get through this facade of the ego and rationality, and see the spiritual reality behind what the sacraments represented. That was a controlled experiment. There were lots of controlled experiments, but eventually he turned into a little bit of a counterculture guru. And I think he got taken over by that role of leading a generation out of the consensus reality, you know, thus blowing your mind, and that phrase. So I think he became different to what he started out of.
Well, a book I read probably back in about 2009 was called The Most Dangerous Man in America. Timothy, it was a book about Timothy Leary, and it talked all about his life and how he ended up where he did, and he's got contacts to Winona Ryder and to what's her name? She was in Kill Bill, Uma Thurman. You know, like he's kind of connected to a sort of celebrity counterculture and that kind of thing. But that book is a good one to start with if you are curious to know more about Tim Leary and what he did for researching the realms that have been banned in research for quite a long time now, haven't they? They've only just really started over the past few years, really going back into researching psychedelics and the actual the medicinal therapeutic use of them, and you know, down to things like depression and you know, even further really down that rabbit hole. But Tania has just put in the chat, Michael Pollan wrote a book about LSD called Back in Fashion. And Michael Pollan, I like him. I've been following him more recently. He also wrote a book called How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan, and how to use LSD in therapy. So yeah, he's an interesting one actually. I think he went on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he's done a really interesting, because he looked at you know, all types of drugs really. He got into LSD in a for research purposes, literally. That's what he said. But he also has studied the effect of coffee and you know, other types of drugs. But you know, it's a really interesting guy if you want to look into that. But I was wondering, Richard, if you wanted to explore some of our listener charts, our patron charts.
We could do that, but I wonder whether your listeners are also rather intrigued about your dream. So why don't we start with the dream? If it's not too long, if it's not Netflix long, you know, 12 series, 10,000 episodes, you know, if it's not, maybe you could be
I'll share a dream.
Guinea pig, and then
I'll share a dream. Yes.
Then look at a few charts as well.
Yes. So I won't tell you the Netflixy one, because I'm still trying to piece together exactly what I experienced. But it was a it was like a let's say like a serial killer dream, but it was a bit more like, have you seen those films Hostel, or they're like horrible sort of like not very nice dreams. So I won't bother going into it, just purely because I can't really remember all of it actually, and trying to recall it would be a bit boring. But I'll tell you a dream that I had on Saturday night. And I woke up and thought, well, this is a weird one and would be good to talk about. So I actually, for context, went for a massage on Saturday. Been unwell for a little while. I had a really horrible bug last week, and I at the end of it thought, I'm going to go and treat myself to a massage. And I found somebody who it was like a Mother's Day massage, and like scalp massage, back massage, and doing the foot massage. And I thought, oh, I love a foot massage, so yes, I'll definitely go and get that done. And in my dream that night, I dreamt that I was having a massage, and that she was like really working on my my right foot, and she was going at it for ages. And when I got home, I had a look at my foot, because I thought there was a little lump in my foot. And when I looked, I had the beginning of a fin growing out of my foot, and it looked like the very beginning of it, it was almost like like a fingernail coming out almost, but it was a baby fin. And just for even more context, I've noticed that my little boy's having a Neptune transit, and all he wants to watch is Finding Nemo, or anything to do with sharks. So, you know, it's a big theme at the moment, and I'm having my Neptune square. So, you know, I didn't think too deeply into it, but I thought it would be maybe a good light one to get into.
Perhaps also this is a precursor to today. You know, apart from the Neptune symbolism and Pisces, we know medically rules the feet, and you know, we could look at your 12th house and your Neptune and so on. But maybe this was impressing upon you that that something is coming out of you, let's say, or growing and developing your ideas about dreams.
Yes.
And that this was Mother's Day, and that you were ill and you were being taken care of. Yes. And something from this massage produced something else. Just a small little fin. You know, you started off today with that metaphor, didn't you, about Pisces and swimming in the sea. And I think working with dreams can be a bit like swimming in the sea. And that's where we need those rational frameworks to help us come back to port. Yes. Because one symbol can lead to another, it lead to another, it lead to another. Something like that. Yes. What did you make of it? Because the right side of the body in general is the left side of the brain. It's the rational, it's the discursive, it's the analytical part. It's that where we try to make rational sense of the other side, which is the intuitive, symbolic, and so on. So probably something, as I say, to do with that was triggered off.
I think that I've had a bit of a tug of war between the spiritual path and the reality side of things for quite some time now, and trying to find the right balance for me, being Miss Capricorn with her Aquarius stellium and, you know, all of that. So these midlife transit things that I'm having at the moment are very much about trying to find my place in the world, and as the person that I am now, who is not the person I was. And I think that the fin coming out of the foot was definitely some kind of reminder. I mean, the fact that it was almost like it was bone as well. It was like it's very Capricorn. It's like the tail of the sea goat.
Yes. Yeah. And Capricorn has an element of its main process is alchemical. I'm not sure whether we covered this, but there's an alchemical process that goes on in every sign. Yes. And the alchemical process of Capricorn is to take the potentials of your life, which are all swimming around in the sea. They're unconscious fish. They're not on dry land, right? And then if you think about that, it takes the unconscious potential into the goat, and the goat takes it to the top of the mountain. So this is why it's ambition. This is why deep-seated in you is a spiritual ambition. You see, but that needs to be made practical, need to be made real. So Capricorn has this innate duty to transform innate potential into something substantial for the world. That's its vocation. That's why, you know, it's the apprentice, the sign of the apprentice. You need some kind of mentor figure to follow, in which you can then take your innate potential of being human and transform it into the gold of realized manifestation. So it's interesting that those two turn up. How practical is your spirituality? Or is it very, you know, Aquarian? It's all thoughts, but not practical.
Yeah, I think that there's not been as much practice. So I got a Reiki client the other day, and it'd been a while since I've had a Reiki client, and I was really excited about it because it meant I actually had to really get my sort of head screwed on properly and get into that place, and you know, practice good auric hygiene and all of that sort of stuff. So actually it was a really positive experience for me, and it reminded me of that side of myself that I've kind of put on the back burner while I've been focusing on other things, and primarily being a parent, but then on top
Yes.
of that, it's just trying to function in life as a human, and then there's a little bit of time for doing what I enjoy, and then hopefully actually practicing what I preach. And I think that the practicing what I preach maybe didn't sort of take the forefront for a while. So I also wonder if it's a little bit like reminding me this is who I am. How much lower down can you get in your body than on the sole of your foot to have this little thing come out? So it's almost like saying, don't forget who you are, the very core of who you are. So it was like I woke up thinking it was quite, even though it seemed silly, it was quite profound actually.
Well, perhaps, as I say, the fin, the fin bit, it is the feet. The feet were the last thing to come out the sea. So if we did originate as some kind of amoeba in the sea and transform, and then eventually amphibious creatures came out, if this is an evolutionary thing, don't forget your roots. Don't forget where you've come from. And the fin is how the person directs and moves around in the sea, if you like. So it's just worth thinking about that, maybe becoming more real for you. Not just your feet, but something coming from those roots is the wrong metaphor, but it's your past, which comes from the sea.
Yes. Yeah.
As a Capricorn. Interestingly enough, that Capricorn, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Being that duality.
I think Isobel Pagan calls that sign, I think it's the spiritual ambassador. It's the Capricorn has to find meaning in incarnation.
Yes. Yeah.
But it doesn't find it. Sometimes the Capricorns only do the earth bit, become managers and sorters, and they seek power and control and everything else, but they forget where their life force is coming from.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's part of the dream. Definitely, I would say it definitely felt like I connected to it. So thank you for that, and listening to my kind of weird gross foot dream. Okay, so shall we have a look at a patron's chart?
Yes, if you like. Who's this?
Okay, so Tania, are you ready to have a go? Okay,
yeah,
good.
Tania, did you have a dream too?
Yeah, I have two. The first one is about rats, and it's reoccurring, and it doesn't matter where I am, if I'm in a kitchen or in a living room or in the bedroom, or sometimes I'm in like a nice bedroom, never my own. I never recognize the interior as my own, but I recognize that this is a bedroom. Sometimes it's in like this poverty-stricken, maybe like opium den, and I do not do opium, with just a dirty mattress on the floor, and I'm trying to just keep it clean. And all of these different venues, the thing that's the same in all of them is that I'm sitting on something. If it's the sofa, the mattress on the floor, the bed, or a kitchen chair, and rats, not mice, but rats start coming up out of like a hole between the wall and the floor, preferably a corner, or like a pipe that is sticking up out of the floor, and they just come shooting out, and I can't stop them, and I don't know where they're coming from, and it's so creepy. Like I cannot explain how creepy and horrible this feeling is with these rats, and I'm trying to put the bed on top of it and get them stopped, and I don't know where to call to get help, or like to tell someone to stop the rats or shut off the rat faucet. It's just this nasty.
Do you have any idea what this might represent for you? Because immediately your chart is telling me.
Okay, well, let's see if I can hit it. I see rats as Scorpio. Or eighth house. And I think they're like deep, dark fears or secrets that are attacking me and making me deal with them, or showing me like some kind of, I don't want to say fear, because you have your fears, but as though one of my fears is materializing. It's manifesting itself. And I don't know which. The rats are a symbol for either some fear or danger that I'm already afraid of, or of which I'm already afraid, that are around me.
Right. Well, I think that's a terrific start to it. And would you mind if we went into it a bit?
No, I'd love to hear what you have to say, Richard.
Okay. Well, obviously rats live in tunnels and sewers and everything else, and everybody's afraid of them. They carry disease and vermin, and they had a connection to the bubonic plague and the Black Death. Okay, so we've got some wonderful symbolism there. No wonder you thought it was Scorpio, right? And your Pluto is in Virgo, which happens to be the ruler of rodents.
Oh, right, small animals.
So there's your, so there's your dark rodent there, sitting in the 10th house of manifestation, and Virgo manifesting. So, and of course you have a Scorpio ascendant. So there's the Neptune in the unconscious, dreaming of rats. There it is again, Neptune in Scorpio. But what's the most prominent thing here is Pluto is conjunction your Mercury. Mercury rules the 8th house.
No, it's not. It's conjunct my uterus. It's conjunct my Uranus, not uterus, my Uranus.
No, transiting Pluto.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the natal chart here.
I didn't make it clear. But nevertheless, you can start to see this Mercury, these things emerging from the tunnel. Could you go back? Yeah, otherwise there's too much information.
There we go.
Yeah, that's fine.
I understand what you're doing, but I think we know, we all of us know, don't we, that Pluto is on this Mercury at the moment?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so isn't that fascinating? Immediately we see the rats coming out, you know, up from a hole in the floor.
Yep.
And Mercury is the ruler of the 8th. So in every way, we've got Scorpionic symbolism, Plutonic symbolism, and this Pluto on Mercury. Now, when it's at the level of the animal, right, when it's at the level of rodent, rather than a dog or a bird or whatever, it does indicate something rather primitive coming up, some rather primitive fears, only in the form of that dark, rather foreboding pestilence of rats. So I think it will be for other dreams to kind of move that on to tell you what the fear is, but it is coming up at the moment. And I think when you're lying on something, that's got to do with being unconscious. Okay. When you lie, if it's on a bed, you go to sleep, or whether you lie down, you're not walking, you're not upright, no. You're kind of supine or kind of relaxed in a different state. So, and it's in the house, it's in your own psyche, it's where you reside. So it's not just anywhere, but this is not really a salubrious part of town for you. No. You feel uncomfortable with it, and we must take it very seriously that some message is coming up that's going to be frightening to you. And at the moment, this fear is imaged as rats coming up. Yeah. Now, why I think astrology is very good is it tells us now's the right time to have rat dreams.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So before we understand what this might mean for you, know that the unconscious is adding to any interpretation we might make about your Pluto Mercury. And for me, what's hitting me strongly is that this is trying to denote to you the reality of the unconscious, the reality, you know, of the fact that, yeah, we can pick apart dreams and can theorize about them, but there is, as I made a statement earlier on today, that there really is an unconscious in you.
Oh, yeah.
Right? There is another intelligence, and that it makes itself known or represents through various means, synchronicities, accidents, sometimes illnesses. It makes itself known. And it's coming up in the form of rats at the moment. So whatever the fears are, they're arising. But why I say the realization that there is an inner guide, yes, is that this synchronicity, this powerful synchronicity between those images in the dream and the astrological content, they're the same. I noticed that Isobel smiled when I said Virgo equals rodents, and there he is, you see.
Yeah.
And this may well have something to do with how you manifest in the world, a lack of, let's say, career development or achievement in that sense. Is Pluto in the 10th? Yes, something's always gone off. Neptune never likes to appear very strongly in the material world, much rather reclusive in that opium den of your own unconscious. Although you're not interested in opium, that Neptune there, it feels uncomfortable when it comes out the sea for too long. Yeah, but this Mercury needs to understand. Mercury is our rational consciousness. He's called a psychopomp. And he can understand the language of the unconscious and translate it into the language of the known. So Mercury goes down there and up there. So something here to do with learning about the real reality of the unconscious, that it can speak to you, to write this down, to make notes, to, analyze perhaps in a very Aquarian way. You can do that. Jung had an Aquarius ascendant.
Yeah.
And he, to look at it rather scientifically. It suggests to me that you want to get into dreams in a bit more of a serious manner.
I think this was predestined somehow, because I think you remember that the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction was on 0 degrees Aquarius in 2020.
Yeah.
Lucky me.
Yeah.
I think
But what
somehow.
do you make to what I'm saying? Does this have any resonance with your?
Oh yes, I just while you're talking, I thought of the conjunction being there, telling me that this is what's going to happen, and it's almost as though fate or the stars they're hitting me in the head. Do you get it yet? And when I don't, it hits me again. It's like when you're in grade school and you go on that field trip with school, and the teacher points out, "Now look at this, children. Do you see what's there?" And some of them look at her kind of stupidly, like a doe with her eyes stuck in the headlights. And others like, yeah, I see it. It's, I feel like it's that grade school teacher saying to me, Tania, do you see this? And every time I don't, it gets worse.
What is this? Do you see this?
It's what you're saying. It's what's in my deep. It's the secrets. It's the fears that are coming out that I have to look at.
Yeah. And you said they were something to do with being material. Well, Aquarius does like to be out of it. You've got the 2 outer planets in Earth signs. So whenever you come into material reality, you get taken away. Are you satisfied in your career, or you're bringing yourself out? There's something about Mercury in the 3rd, which really does need to communicate, or have an avenue of communication which makes your internal fears real, makes them known, like we're talking about now.
Yeah.
See,
no, I'm totally dissatisfied and disappointed that I no longer have a voice. And my husband and I have spoken about this in depth. And of course, he's very upset about this because he feels criticized. But I don't feel I have a voice. I don't feel I'm allowed to say anything. I don't feel I'm given time to work in my studio. I don't feel I'm given time to study astrology. I feel like everybody else comes first. And
why do they come first?
Because I put them first. And I've told him that I understand I have to take responsibility for my own part in this. I don't like saying it's your fault or it's my fault. I do like saying that it's a duo, it's a team. Even in society, it's nobody's fault. It's not to point fingers. It's to say my responsibility in this situation is that I have chosen to put you people first, because I'm a happy person and I don't care where we go to eat as long as everyone else is happy. So because I can be just as happy somewhere I don't like, whereas they can't. So they get to go first.
So, all right. So we've released the Mercury. You see, you're talking, you're connecting up.
Yeah.
You've talked. It was a bit ironic when you said, "I have no voice, but I've talked to my husband in depth about this."
Yeah.
Right. So that was a bit of an irony for me.
Yeah, that's the funny thing, is that when I said that my responsibility in this situation is that I've let everybody go first, and now it's very difficult for you all to understand that I also want a place in line near the beginning, because I've taught you and trained you all to know that I put up with anything from all of you and that you always get to go first. So that's part of it. I've never said that before.
So astrologically, what we're seeing is this very powerful Neptune on the ascendant, which is a person that's born and not really know they've been born. It's like you've gone from the womb to the outer womb. And so something in this Neptune always remains in the sea of the unconscious, the creative, that element, the imaginal, and you know, almost like to be a medium, but a medium of others. But if you do that too much, you lose yourself, you lose your central identity. So the challenge here will be to have an arena in which that imaginal, musical, poetic, all of that, you know, and the astrological symbols have a way that you can utilize those, right? But that you're not all Neptune all the time, feeling guilty because somebody else is unwell or always fitting around them. Because remember, the ascendant is our style of accommodating. It's our style of meeting the world, and you need to come out of the sea. Aquarius need a good intellectual stimulus, do you see? And Capricorn, well, you know, your emotions need to be turned into products, need to be turned into things that you can see, actual paintings, as opposed to just thoughts or theoretical texts or understanding. If Aquarius is left on its own, it'll understand everything, but never really materializes much. So do you see what I mean? So it's,
oh yeah,
hopefully you can leave that. And this Uranus transiting across your 7th house, there's been a lot here where you are slowly separating yourself out from the ambient is the word I don't, the fluidic enmeshment in other people.
You have no idea, Richard, and I know that Steph is laughing because she knows, but yep, you have no idea how correctly you hit that on the head. Yes.
Okay, so maybe this is a first task that you've shared it. It's out there. The Pluto on the Mercury announces it's time to dig deeper. You need to find your own voice. That's absolutely classic. You've had a long period, actually, a bit of depression on this Pluto and on the moon. No voice, probably stuck in your books without anybody to talk to. You know, it needs to be now open, communicated, and so on. There's a book here somewhere, or some writing to come, I would say. You probably know an incredible amount, but Aquarius has this eternal search for more knowledge, as opposed to putting it into practice. So maybe it's a bit of Steph here as well, you know, remembering the roots, but making it practical, making it useful. Well, thank you for that. And we don't have time to go into the second dream, but maybe the rats are enough for now.
Richard, thank you very much for kicking me onto the next square.
Yeah, so have you got a dream here, Isobel?
Yes.
Yes.
It wasn't so much a dream. I woke up with an image, and it was like I was there, clear. And it was a harbour. It was a lovely, round, neat harbour with boats in it, and with 2 mountains or hills behind the harbour, and I was looking at it, and it was the hilltops were utterly covered in snow, and it was, yet the sun was shining on it, and the sun was behind me from my perspective, shining on it all, and so it felt really warm. It wasn't a cold, snowy heart. It felt warm. The sunshine was there, and there was a beautiful full silver moon just between the 2 mountains. And I thought, oh, you know, it was really weird. And I got up, and I still had the image in my head clear as I went to the loo, and I heard my voice say, I must get in touch with Mum. And then I thought, well, I can't because she's dead. But my daughter had arranged as a birthday present, because my daughter's curious about mediums and all this stuff. So she thought, I'm going to get her a present with this medium or healer that my friends have been talking about, because I think I can trust Mum's judgment, whether it's for real or not. So I knew that this was coming up at the end of the week. So I must have been thinking, oh yeah, get in touch with Mum. So yeah, that was it. And then it, you know, it just went. So I don't know, is that a dream?
Well, yes, of course it's a dream. We, as a point of fact, we carry on dreaming all the way through the day. It doesn't stop because we wake up. It's just that our attention is taken to the sun. It is taken to the daily activities. When we have a little fantasy during the day, that's it's a dream.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's sexual, sometimes it's wish we were somewhere else, sometimes it's triggered by this, whatever it is. Those dreams continue on in their dream cycle just during the day. It's just that we don't recognize it because we have our attention elsewhere.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. So whether it's a vision or a dream, it's from the same source.
Right.
We have yet another moon in Virgo, those dear old rats conjunction Pluto. Not surprising, is it? We're seeing that turn up. My own immediate association, if I can just bring it in, is actually to the tarot card of the moon. And I don't know whether you know the tarot card of the moon. It's the major arcana. And what it has is it has kind of two pillars like that. And there's mountains in the background. And between the two pillars is the moon.
Oh, no.
And leading up to that, then there's the sea. You go into the sea and so on. So, but there is a ground, and there is a I can't remember, but there's a wolf and a dog, and there's a crayfish coming out of the sea.
Okay.
Now you'll notice that in your chart you have Uranus trine to that by transit, trine to that moon right now. And perhaps it is saying to you, rather like Tania, attend to your dreams a bit more, these psychic elements. And the mother in you perhaps is maybe over concerned for your daughter, but you also need to mother yourself.
Yes.
And there's a little reminder of that.
Yeah.
And the moon is connected to mother, yes, but it's also connected to the unconscious process of body. I can hear, for example, your chest might be a little problematic for you.
Yes.
You know, what have you got to get off your chest? It's very Virgo, you know.
No.
You know, moon in Virgo, often moon in earth signs often somatize their unconscious problems, yes. And so dreams can be very good for this. There's something about mothering you're not doing for yourself. It's very much that moon symbolism, because the moon in that often connects to mediums or people that can read the tarot or something of that nature. And perhaps you've been thinking about doing it yourself, but don't feel good enough.
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
Well, that Sun Saturn, it's a perennial, isn't it? I'm not good at anything. I haven't got enough qualifications. I'm no good. I wasn't doing that. And, you know, it's a kind of unlived potential. If you listen to the criticisms of others that you can't do this and you can't do that.
Yes.
Do you see what I mean?
Totally.
And all of that is being triggered off by this square of Uranus, all of it.
Yeah. Thank you.
And something in you is waking up to the fact that you've crushed or been constrained in your natural life energy, the sun. It's a big pattern. It's often a pattern of not feeling good enough. Your father, you never got enough praise from father or men or whatever, or something of that nature. But the Uranus is waking it up, but it's also trying to the moon at the same time, saying, use the unconscious as a creative source. Use what you know. And is as often when Uranus connects to the Sun and Saturn like this, it's who are you? What's your identity? Are you a mother? Are you a wife? What are you? Because often Sun Saturn lives a life of unfulfilled potential because they can't marshal their forces, because they always feel down or depressed or held back in some way by a sense of inferiority. Oh, I couldn't pass that test. I couldn't, or whatever. But actually, your chart says there's a potential to do that. Sun Saturn, very disciplined. Moon in Virgo, very organized when it wants to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what is it that's unlived in you, Isobel?
Practically.
Have I got this entirely wrong?
No, you've got it entirely right. But being an Aquarian, I always see everything very complicated. But I just feel like I was born with quite a few talents that I'd never really, I did things for other people. I really enjoy doing that, because my talents come as soon as somebody asks me to do something for them. And if I don't know how to do it, I'll find out how to do it. And I enjoy doing it off the cuff.
Yeah, so here we got the Neptune in the first house square, this Sun, it's okay with, oh, I'll do that, I can do that, or I'll take on the burden of that. Don't worry, I'll provide all the food for the family and all of that, but it's kind of caught in family dynamics. When it's in the fourth, very often it can be that it never gets away from that. Aries on the 7th, well, that is so basic astrology. You give away your energies or your assertions or your ability to assert to other people.
Yes.
Even though you got your Mars in Leo.
I know.
Which is a massive creative drive. Square to Neptune, oh, well, I'll do it next week. Oh, I can't. Oh, I'm a bit ill this week. I'll put it off. Oh, I don't feel like it. I haven't had enough sleep.
Yeah.
And besides that, my daughter needs me to go to the school, and all of those. Let's put off being Mars because it's all being dissolved elsewhere. Am I talking?
Totally. That's exactly how I've been thinking all for the last few months. It's been driving me crazy.
Okay, so Neptune's not finished. Uranus is not finished. It's yet to go into the square of that Sun, but it's been waking you up a long time. And Saturn completes often, and it's in an air sign. It's often on, the air. It's often chest. Neptune often represents, water on the lung or something like that nature. There needs to be a clarity of breath. Do you see what I mean? I mean, have you suffering something?
I've had asthma since I was a baby.
Okay, see? Clamping on the breathing, Saturn in an air sign. It's not complicated as astrology. No. And I wonder, was there an oppressive atmosphere in the home as well?
Absolutely. Completely and utterly, yeah. From both parents, from both of them.
No, not good role models.
No.
So you can start to see that some very simple placements, confinement of your life force, Sun in the fourth. Do you see? And so it's time to break out of that. If Uranus tells us anything, it's do something different, change your behavior, change what you say to people, like learn to say no.
Yes.
It's a small word, isn't it? No.
It is.
No, I haven't got time.
Yeah.
Or no, I've got a Netflix series to watch, and I don't care what you think if you feel it's lazy. I'm doing it.
Yeah. It's my dad. My dad is still sitting on me because I'm having to look after his affairs, and this is the year he runs out of money for paying for his care home.
Right. Difficult situation.
I'm gonna have to do battle with the council and that where he is, in the hope that they'll keep him on. And I'm dreading. I have been in absolute terror about it, and I feel I've had to do so much around selling their house, getting mum and dad into care homes, and for my daughter with her court case. And it's just been going on. And I feel I can't do it anymore. I'm tired. I'm fed up with having to do accounts and things on the computer to do with authority and all of this, whereas I want to go off and make stuff.
Well, this is a very difficult existential situation. I don't want to undermine the fact that these things are very difficult. Saturn rules the fifth, and it rules the fourth. There's the father, there's the child. You're okay doing responsibility for them, but not yourself. And as a result, there's a shadow over the sun. Yes. So the Uranus is saying, wake up to the fact that you need more individual time and try to find it. So in other words, not let that overburden you completely. I know it must, the existentials, there's the ideal, isn't there? And then there's the actual.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that, Isobel. I hope you found that useful.
Yes, I really did. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody got any comments on that? Yeah, Tania.
I have two. One is I don't understand why your mother being deceased would hinder you from getting in touch with her.
There's a Neptune on the ascendant.
Yeah, I think you could.
What does the material world mean?
Exactly. Or just, I mean, I get in touch with my mother all the time. But it could also mean just bringing something she's given you, some strength, no matter how horrible our mothers are, we learn something, at least who we don't want to be. So perhaps you need to get in touch with her.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I just would like to give you is, when we say I can't anymore, I sometimes wonder if all the clever girls and all the dutiful girls say I can't, because that allows us to say the truth that I don't want to anymore. I see by you that you can, but if you don't want to, why should you? That's all. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Tania. Great.
Well, I'd like to slightly vary that. I agree in part, but these are all opinions. I don't want to turns up often because I don't want to face the implications of what change means. I was adding to what you're saying, Tania, right? Because to really change is to confront those things that are preventing you change.
Yes.
And to stand up to them and become an inner authority to yourself. And often we don't want to do that, as Eric Fromm said in The Fear of Freedom. Anybody read that one? He said that's how Nazism arose. Who said yes?
Oh, no, I said I haven't.
Okay. Well, he was saying that a lot of people in life, including me and all us, we'd rather remain children. Because if we've got an authority out there to tell us what to do, like the government, like Hitler or whatever, we'll give over our own autonomy and authority to another person. They can take care of us. Right? And that's tantamount to what Tania is saying. You see, I don't want to become an adult. I don't. Sorry. That's strange. I don't know where that came from, but it's like, I don't want to grow up. I don't want to say no, because I get a lot of criticism. And beside that, I'll remain an eternal girl. I'll remain an eternal student. I won't take, you see, and it's tough to take those tough decisions. But when you do, you become more Saturn. Saturn starts to become less external and more internal authority. But it is a tough one to turn around and face and say, I'm going to take responsibility for my own life.
Yeah.
I am going to decide what the rules are. Yeah. I am going to create a boundary around myself which says no from time to time and shuts the door on it. And that is what I think is behind what Tania was saying.
Yes.
Well, it's another dimension to it, that we don't want to grow up to take on the Saturnian authority. Most of us don't. There's a part of us which will like to remain children, be taken care of. But it's what do they say about Saturn, Steph? Tough love.
Yeah.
you know, and that's why I don't want to. It's not that I don't want to, but I don't want to face the problems and difficulties of taking on those decisions. That's why I don't. Not that I ultimately don't want to, but I can't bear what's necessary to do what I must do to have internal authority, or what we call the internal locus of control on our life.
It looks like Cara's just raised her hand quickly. I didn't know if you had something you wanted to say, Cara.
Cara.
Hi, I just thought that was really interesting because I've also got a Sun Saturn conjunction in my 6th house. It's in Libra.
Right.
And I actually said to Steph that I can't make it today because I have to work. But I injured my lower back, and so I've had to stay at home, and now I'm in bed and I can't walk. But I just thought that was quite funny because it's my 6th house, and I felt like the back's like the support and bearing the
Yes.
weight responsibility, and then this has happened.
And yet you're sitting upright.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to today. Yes, it's I mean, we're talking, is this stuff symbolic or is it real? Is it kind of, you know, astrology floats in and out of reality. The Sun in the 6th, conjunction Saturn. I got a bad back. I couldn't make it because I had to go into work. Work takes priority than this. And yet something in you decided that you weren't going to go into work. I don't, do you have sciatic problems, spine problems?
Oh, years ago, and I've done a lot of work on it, but I don't know. I don't know how I made this injury. I was actually doing like this exercise, which involves like traumatic release, like a somatic release work.
Yeah.
And then a few days later, I just couldn't walk. And a lot of stuff's come up that I've journaled about is, my inability to say no, and stuff from childhood and all of that. So I just thought that was really interesting.
So when I was talking about Isabel's Sun Saturn, you recognize some of the pattern in your own life?
Yes, and I've also got Mars and Leo.
Ah,
And
that's interesting.
so I identified with a lot of what you were saying.
What house is that Mars in?
It's my 4th house.
Okay. Well, it's a classic, isn't it? To take over authority in your own life. If you don't do it, it's going to turn up as a psychosomatic system. And you may have been working with that. It's one of your fated dimensions, either through genetics or early trauma or whatever has happened to that back. It's one of the patterns you're working through. But in sometimes if you've done something to tweak it, there may be a motivation in that. Almost as if, well, I can't go into work because I have a bad back, not because I've chosen to do so. Do you see what I mean? So it's a kind of, I can't because I've got a real excuse.
Yeah.
Rather than going, I'm going to, lie today. I've got a bad back, but I don't really, because I want to listen to an astrology lecture. Well, you can't tell your bosses that. But sometimes 6th house does come out as psychosomatic, body, mind, interaction. And I want to do this today, but it would be counter to the humdrum usual, the routines of work, the work and so on. I don't want to be seen as irresponsible because then I'd be criticized. See what I mean? And when we get back to all of that Sun Saturn, well, I hope you find something from today, because I find it a very interesting conversation, moving from psychology to reality through symbol, through image of dreams. It's very fluidic. Okay, did you have a dream, Cara?
Oh, yes. Am I allowed to? I wasn't sure because I wasn't.
We've got about 25 minutes to half an hour left. So Catherine was going to share as well, but if we can.
We have time. We have time.
Yes?
I did hear from my host that somebody withdrew at the last minute because they were a bit afraid of coming on. Maybe that was coming. Maybe we'll leave you till last, Catherine. And maybe after the examples of today from Steph and Tania revealing rats in the cellar that she's sleeping on, maybe it'll make it easier in a group to just share a bit. Would you like to share something with us, Cara?
There we go. Is that right? Does that look right to you? It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
that looks
Oh, we're having a wonderful Sun Saturn theme today, aren't we?
Yeah.
Where is this Aries ascendant, Mars in Leo conjunction the 5th? Well, there is a heavy weight towards the appeasement of others, a nature which does not like upset. It causes, and that back is typically Libra. Libra represents the mid region medically. It's halfway down. It's up, yes. So it represents the lumbar region. You're moving into the sciatic region, which is Scorpio. And then that will move into the Sagittarius region, which is the sciatic nerve going into the thigh muscles, preventing running. So if we just look at that concentration on getting a balance between up here and earth, if you like, I would say you're probably started out life as a bit of an idealist. Most Librans are. Good points, very graceful, very concerned, courteous towards others, quite a humanitarian spirit, likes to agree, even if it's to disagree. It's a very mentally ideal sign, seeking balance, relationship, all of the stuff that you know. But then you meet life, which is gruff. It can tell you lies. It can get people to undermine you. And this is a terrible affront to a sun, moon in Libra, which seeks that kind of ideal balance. Sometimes it upsets the balance completely, and so which is why Libra and Saturn represent the inner ear. Yes, so people not hearing you properly. Anyway, another moon Pluto. I wonder if Cara is going to have rats in the kitchen this time rather than, I wonder where your rats are. We could go over all that Pluto square stuff, but I'm not, it's been, God heavens, you've had 15 years worth of Pluto square, all of that. Thank God it's coming out, yes, and eventually it's not quite there yet because Pluto is squaring your Mercury, and something yet is to be made known consciously before you move on. There's a quick reading on those bits. What is your dream? Do you have a dream, Cara?
Yeah, the recurring dream I keep having, I've got a few, but the main one I'll just speak of, it's about water. So I keep going to this place. Sometimes it's the same place, and there's like a beach or water, and like I always step into the water and it's like really clear. And it's like this beach that it's always been there, but I've never discovered. It's like I've discovered it for the first time, even though I've lived in this place in my dream for like ages.
Right.
And twice there's been dolphins in the dream.
What opens? I beg your pardon, I spoke prematurely.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just saying sometimes in the waters there's like dolphins swimming in it.
Okay. Have you ever swum with dolphins?
Yes.
What was the experience like?
The water was a little bit rough and we couldn't see them properly. So yeah, it wasn't the experience I'd hoped for.
Okay.
The water wasn't clear.
I think this is, perhaps there's a theme today too, of treating what I'm calling the unconscious or an intelligence, the sea, as a reality. You've gone towards it many times through symbols, images, or understanding, right? Maybe even some astrology readings or tarot readings or whatever. And you approach it but Libra has a tendency to be a bit mental. That sounded bad, didn't it? But it mentalizes. It's Aquarian. It's Libra, and it's air. It tends to be theoretical. This Mercury and Venus are not theoretical. They're in the realm of the unconscious in water. So there is something here, again, dipping your foot in the water. That's, you know, that's temperance, interestingly enough, in the tarot. Dip its foot in the water, 1 foot in the well of the unconscious and 1 foot on earth. I wonder what mediums that you use to tap into this unconscious creativity in you. Do you do therapy? Have you been involved in therapy?
Yes, I've tried like nearly every type of medium that you could probably try. I've even spoken to mediums. Yeah, just I do a lot of art as well, journaling, meditation, just everything really.
Have you ever written any poetry?
No, funny that you say that. I was contemplating writing a sort of story, not poetry, but like a fiction kind of story, but based on, reality as a way of healing.
Have you gone on a course for that? You can do a 6-day course and just get the structure and the technique. It's just
No.
when Pluto is squaring this Mercury, it's time to tell. It's time to say things. It's you know, Scorpio is a water sign. Sometimes it can, you know, delves into the mythic reality of the unknown. You know, you could say it's connected to the Hecate in us, and it's a bit personal, but it's a bit private. So in the realm of storytelling, Mercury is it. Pluto square that would be an absolute great time to start voicing these inner ideas.
That's quite interesting. Yeah, it's just something I thought about, but haven't done yet.
But the Saturnian word, you know, let's pause before it goes ahead. What's the holding back, do you think? Is there any attitude that's holding you back, or money, or what is it that's holding you back?
I'm just thinking I wanted to start a creative business because I've got like so many creative ideas. I'm more visual than anything. And I think the two things holding me back, one is it's a whole lot of stuff around money and like if I don't have my job anymore, can I survive? A lot of Chiron and Taurus in the second house stuff. I think that's the main thing holding me back. And then there's the whole like I'm not professional. I think it's the Sun Saturn part.
Yeah.
When you were saying before about not having enough qualifications, not it needs to be like very polished and look professional.
Well, of course, sixth house has so many standards. They're never finishing, you know, vacuuming the kitchen. You know, it's just, there's always another bit of dirt to go around. So you got to watch that. You know, I can see you trying to perfect your first sentence, you know, for a month. Just watch that. I'm just joking around, but it's the sixth house, you see. Now, the sixth house, the Sun in the sixth and Saturn require structure, require skills and technique. So before you launch into it into some kind of a way, I think you will be supported by going on a small course or instruction or following a book, tell you how to do it. Yes. And then to follow that. Aries have a tendency to jump into the next idea yes, that's great, and they jump in. They don't realize they don't know how to, you know, row the canoe down the river properly because they've never been instructed, and you soon end up in trouble. That impulse to move ahead because you're excited, but it needs tempering with Sun Saturn, skill, technique, structure, organization of your words. I mean, half of writing is in, you know, 67% is in coordinating your ideas, making a note of them, and then putting them into a story form which people can understand. That's Mercury for you. So before you do it, I wouldn't just get out and start typing, right? Aries does that. Oh yes, this is great, and they're not realizing that it's all unconscious flow rather than consciously directed, which is needed with Saturn in the 6th. I would have a think about it seriously. I think your Mars in Leo would like it. You don't have to do it professionally, no, but get something out there. That would be my advice.
Thanks. That makes a lot of sense because I have just done a course on how to start a creative business. So yeah, it's quite helpful for me to have a structure.
There we go. Use some of those techniques of organization, strategy, step-by-step processing, and then tick it off as a good 6th house does. Oh, I've done stage 1, now it's on stage 2, and then treat it like that. Okay, thank you, Cara.
Thank you.
Good luck with that Pluto square Mercury.
Thanks.
Okay, well, just while you were talking, I don't know if can you see my screen, anybody?
I can see it, but it's so small that we can't make out what is on that card.
Oh, well, never mind. I had the Temperance Tarot card I was holding up, and I've also got the moon, because you mentioned the moon earlier. But what I will do is I'll superimpose it onto the screen at a later date when I'm editing.
Oh, well, how clever. I can't do any of that.
It's software. So did you want to have a little look at Catherine's? Catherine, are you there? Did you want to, or should we wrap it up today?
I'm here.
Brilliant.
I see
Hi,
people
Richard.
got hands up, but the time is short, so we'll just move on to Catherine. If you would like a dialogue or just to share something, that will be fine.
I also have a Sun Saturn thing and a Mars in Leo.
Oh my goodness, what is happening today?
Hilarious. This was not intentional. I didn't do this on purpose.
We may get on to the Uranus because yet again you've got Sun conjunction Mars, Uranus has been hit. We'll come to that. The 2 words that are now ringing in my mind is held back. Being held back. Very Saturn, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whether that's held back by fears or held back because you've got a bad back, or held back because you feel inferior and you'll never make any headway, or people don't listen to you because you're always being involved or allowing yourself to be involved in others and not holding you see, held back in that dimension, as Tania. So that's a theme that I think summarizes this Saturnian thing, being held back in some way for some reason. Right, Catherine.
Hi, I also have a Capricorn moon like Tania.
Right. Okay, right. Well,
Another Earth moon.
So a lot of what you've said has resonated throughout the whole chat today.
Which bits?
What really sprung into my mind listening to everybody's stories is that I used to dream, bringing it back to dreams, I used to dream prolifically. And then when I got a serious job, I stopped dreaming. And when I gave that up last June, July, I found that I'm dreaming prolifically again. And I just thought that was really interesting. And I think it was something that you mentioned to Tania, just made it spring into my head. And I just thought, well, yeah, it's just so interesting that I've realised. And in my new life, I am using my Capricorn moon to actually create things, which maybe that's why I'm dreaming more. I'm feeling more creative and more creative in the other realms, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is very concomitant with a problematic Saturn opposed Neptune, especially a water sign and an earth sign. If you're doing Saturn, you have to be serious. Your serious job. That's a Saturnian word, serious. There's the serious job, isn't there? Getting money, being supportive, being reliable, you know, all of those wonderful Taurian, you know, steadfast, all of those kind of things. But if you're doing that at the expense of Neptune, Neptune often comes in the form of colds or weird moods, or, you know, can't get through the next day unless I have a couple of gin and tonics. I'm not saying that you do that, Catherine, but, you know, a couple of glasses of wine in the evening. Both parts of the opposition have to be met. And it seems to me that if you're doing your Saturn, you get into that, you don't have any dreamings, because if you had dreams, it would remind you that there's an unconscious creativity you're not dealing with, and that's too painful. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And then the sun has to mediate between them. You know, there's the practical realities of life, aren't there? You know, Saturn in Taurus, fear of poverty, essentially, brought up in difficulty, saw parents that work their fingers to the bone, as we say, you know what I mean, come through the depression maybe, or whatever it is. Sometimes a strong Saturn like this, the father's been a coal miner or some kind of, you know, really difficult job that they had to do to earn a living. You know, you see, I'm not saying he was a coal miner, but it's just something of that manual, hard labor. And so you've got a great work ethic, but you've also got a Neptune. and that Neptune has got nothing to do with that, but bringing through images of the imagination through astrology, through creative work. And that Saturn and the moon are called in mutual reception. Saturn is in the sign of exaltation of the moon, and the moon is in the sign that is ruled by Saturn. So they've got a nice affinity, even though they're out of orb of trine. They have a strong connection. So Saturn can be gained by or helped through fifth house matters. This whole thing is, do you understand what I'm talking about here, Catherine?
Absolutely, yes. I've always felt supported by Saturn, actually.
Yeah, it's a good Saturn. I'm not saying it's bad, but what about your earlier years with your parents? What did they do for a living?
My dad was a mechanic, and my mum worked as well. She worked in finance.
That's interesting. So he was a mechanic. Did he have his own garage?
No. He worked for the port here on big cranes and you know, big equipment, and he always came home like he'd been down a coal mine.
Exactly. So there's that hard manual labor, you know, very Taurian, very solid kind of man, providing for his family, doing what he has to do, you know, to do that. But there's often a toll. There's another Saturnian word. They're all coming out today, aren't they? A toll to be paid for that kind of manual labor later on in life. You know, it's hard. It's burdensome. I wouldn't be surprised that he, you know, if his shoulders, you know, came up or bore the brunt. You know what I mean?
He died young, actually. He died only when he was 61, and he had an arthritic lung. It was a very rare disease that he got through, we think, through the work at the port. But the arthritic lung is quite interesting because he was a Capricorn sun.
Yes, well, in your chart, he is indicated through his, if you see him as the fourth house by derivative house system, the ninth is his sixth, if you understand. If you take the fourth as his ascendant on your chart, you can see that he died of an overburdened body.
Okay.
You see, so it's indicated. That's all orrery technique, but it's just an aside. I was just feeling that, and we don't want you to go the same way, do we? We want this Neptune, this painting, this other artistic, imaginal world to be manifest. Otherwise, as I say, it has to come out through drinking, poor me, colds, depressions, self-pitying, keeping yourself hidden. You know, I can't get up today. You know, all those Neptunian poor me self-victimization business. Does that make sense?
Not really. Sorry, I'm quite optimistic. I'm not normally a depressive type of person, but I do feel that I hide. Yeah, that's
okay. Okay. Well, that's very nice to hear that you're not going into that Neptunian, poor me,
No,
talking about your illnesses all the time. You can often hear that. It's very self-victimizing, often self-victimizing. Did you have a dream?
I have got some epic dreams, but I think they're probably too long to share. But I just really wanted to pop on and say that it's been really interesting to be able to understand about how I can now dream prolifically, whereas I had a period absolutely no dreams at all.
Well, I would suggest to you, make a note of them. Even if they're epic, even if they're Netflix specials, this Uranus is, hitting that Saturn. Something is about to change in your work structure. To expect that Uranus upsets the usual apple cart in some way. And then,
absolutely. I left a job of 22 years when Uranus hit my my 9th house. Yeah.
And it's going to go, it's squaring Mars, going to go into the Saturn, the Sun, and then it'll have a few, maybe late 2025 or something, it'll go into the Neptune. So this is a whole new change about structure, and it's going to release, if you like, a new lease of life. I think I rather like it.
Oh, good. Thank you. That's really encouraging.
Well, thanks for coming on. And haven't you? I always find when I'm talking with people like this, how the symbols move in and out of people's lives as realities, right? So to skirt through symbolism into real life and then back and forth is the art of the symbol, if you like, moving in and out, making sense of it, weaving tales around the astrological placements. And that's what we do with dreams as well. And maybe the underlying tone of this, I don't know what you feel, Steph, but the underlying element is that this stuff is real.
Yeah.
Or because it's symbolic, it's real. You can get some real information, some real guidance from it, whether it's your dreams or whether it's astrology. So if all we've done today is to underline or underscore that, then we're doing well.
I think that must be the Saturnian presence, is to let us know that it's very much a part of our reality, the way that it might manifest in its varying expressions. But it's been very interesting. There always seems to be a sort of a thread that relates everybody when we have these kind of things. I don't know how or why, but it's just the magic of the moment. But I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for coming along and sharing. We've really put Richard to work today, and he's already had a really busy day. And if anybody who's here now or who is listening or watching this episode would like to have a reading with Richard, all they have to do is get in touch with me. I'll put my details at the bottom in the description so that you can get in touch very easily. I'll also put some links to the chart details that were shared and some of the things that were mentioned, some of the books.
And the tarot cards.
And the tarot cards as well. And just to say thank you very much. And hopefully we can get together and do some more sessions, Richard. I'd like that.
Yes.
And some more patron sessions as well. I think it was really fun.
Oh, I think it's absolutely fabulous. I think, I like this kind of personal setting. I'm a Cancerian, and so one to many, it's good, but it's less personal.
Yes, I agree. I like the intimate the setting as well. So all right, well, thanks everybody for joining. I really appreciate everybody being very open and sharing the sometimes the more hidden aspects and personally guarded, because sometimes these things can reveal more than we want to share. So thanks very much everybody. Take care, and we'll speak to you next time. Bye.
Cheerio everyone.
Thank you.